Hello everyone, and welcome to another Company Heroes 2 replay cast. My name is ATR, and today we're gonna have ourselves a 1v1 on Angoville. Our heroes today are going to be Mr. Fortune, playing as the Soviet faction in the blue. And his opponent is going to be Princes of Sword. Not of the Sword, it's Princes of Sword, playing as the Austere or Wehrmacht faction in the red. So yes, no more 2v2s, at least not for a while, but if I get a good one and you want to cast it, I'll cast it, but I don't think I'm going to be doing another full week of 2v2s like I did previously. It was kind of tough, but I hope you guys enjoyed the overlay. I think it was kind of okay. It's a little bit, wonky, like I said, where it switches constantly and stuff of that nature, which is annoying, but I think it's an acceptable thing to have, to at least be able to see on the replay both factions, right? So anyways, let's talk about this game instead. We have Mr. Fortune going for conscripts, as you normally do when you are playing the Soviets. Combat engineers popping into the barn right up front, getting shot in the face by the MG42, not taking too much damage, as of course they were inside the building. But of course, they have to get out of there because they know they're not going to win that. Princess of Sword decided to get tier 1, like you would normally expect. Gets himself that MG42 that we already saw, and then is going for Grens, double Grens to start off with. So no early snipers, at least not yet. Combat engineers down south are laying down some wire from the house to the hedge, making sure that this approach is not easily accessible. Still, most of the time you have to wire from here to here, so that it makes it a little bit more difficult for the opponent to come in and steal the house and just loiter there, making your life a living hell. But the combat engineers are popping in, popping out, just making sure they can spot for their forces. Conscripts moving around the right-hand side, they're going to go for the victory point. Grant Sampaio is going to engage. MG42 popping into the manor behind them. Well, it's just a really big-ass house. To the two-story house behind them. And should be able to support with the MG. However, the conscripts decide to just simply backpedal, get themselves back to the fuel point, and they're going to fight from there. They would have benefited a lot here by setting down, sandbags in the process, but I guess I didn't have the time. Normally you can do that while you're capping and not in, any immediate danger. But for now, it looks like it's not going to work. Conscripts do Ura away, managing to keep themselves in the on the field, not having to retreat. Combat engineers in the center, though, do, they spot the MG42, it looked like, and they ended up retreating. Or Fortune just really wants to build some tech, and considering the manpower that he currently has, it looks like he does indeed want to tech, which is why a lot of times we see players on the Soviet faction go for the second combat engineer squad, rather than having to retreat the squad that is currently out on the field trying to cap. They should simply build a second one, tech up with that one, and they also put themselves in a, in a better position later on in the game, since they, if keep them alive, of course, have more resources or, a faster repair rate for their vehicles. But, to each their own. At this stage, it means Fortune, even though it took him a little bit to tech up, I suppose, he's going to have those resources available to him so he can do something else. But for now, we do see tier 2 having gone down. We'll see if he builds anything from that, or it was just simply a teching up method. For Princess of Sword, he decides to go for 3 Grens total, getting himself a second MG42 to bolster his troops. Third Gren squad coming up right now. Pio is moving over to the left. But yeah, Princess of Sword does not seem to be really interested at all on the left-hand side of the map, which is fine for Angoville, considering that the right-hand side is the one that controls both of the victory points. However, Princess of Sword only really has half of the right-hand side. So yeah, he needs to send something to the left and cap, and he's doing that right now with the Pio, so that is probably should have sent something a little bit earlier to at least have those resources available to him. Because we can see that the point right to the very far left over here is not currently capped by anybody, neither is this point, so these could be potentially in the possession of Princess of Sword and, have him. Because we can see him, he's, he is consolidating his forces here into a big blob, but he's not just simply pushing out and capping, he's waiting for the assault, so his troops are sitting there for a little while, not doing anything, until he can get all his troops in the same place, so it's a little bit more difficult to cap that way. So anyways, conscript squad does get quickly murdered there by the Grents as they all push forward together. Conscript squad down to 1 man, barely makes it out of there. We have a second squad, a combat engineer squad, hold up inside the shack on the far right hand side. They're going to hold up for a little while against the Grens, but the Grens will definitely win that engagement. It's just going to be delayed a little bit, although it's not really delaying much in the sense that the Grens are going to be able to cap the point while they engage the combat engineers. Combat engineers do manage to actually force the retreat of one of the Grens, as of course they are able to just simply sit there and fire back. Full firepower as they only have 3 members left, but they're still in the benefit of the cover, so does put them in that better position. Molotov flies, hitting the house. The Gren squad pops out, but pops out through the other exit, basically pinning themselves in the map there, but the Molotov was tossed inside the house, not outside, so nothing really happens. Conscripts on the left-hand side going for the strategic point, going to be cutting off any resources, but we only see that one strategic point getting capped. Pyos are going to go for the fuel. They'll probably be able to decap it before anything happens. And the Grens pop into the house and are now in a very, very bad spot here as they're going to get cut off on the retreat. They have to retreat, running the gauntlet here inside the house as the Grens are trying to make their way out of there. Conscripts pop out, all clumped up together. Going to be able to get some good shots on the retreating Grens. Second squad getting in the way, and down goes the Gren squad for Princess of Sword. Fortune picking himself up a very nice kill there and putting himself in a great, great spot. Back at base, we do see Med Bunker going down for Mr. Princess of Sword, getting those Grens healed up and ready to fight at full strength. We only have 2 Grens now on the field. Maxim machine gun does get procured for Fortune, trying to face off against the MG42, losing the engagement quickly and being forced to retreat. The second Maxim machine gun is currently holed up inside the house. It has taken some shots, but actually it's not even taking any shots. What was it firing at? Maybe the Pio squad? There's a retreating MG, so it may have been that.
Our territory is falling into enemy hands.
Sorry. Far left-hand side, we do see the Pio still capping, going for that victory point. Nothing is currently there to oppose them, as once again Fortune and, well, Princess of Sword, for the most part, are all focusing on the right-hand side, which is, you know, understandable, because, like I said, most of the time, people focus on the right because it gives you both of those victory points. You can control the entire left-hand side of the map and still lose. Conscripts engaging in the center. Pios with flamethrowers pushing forward. Grens behind them for support. Molotov does fly. Get a nice hit there on those Pios. Pios getting cooked alive. Down to 2 men. Conscripts Ura forward, but they just run themselves straight into the arc of fire of the MG42. The MG42 packs up its weapon and repositions as it expects that it's going to get into range of the Molotov. It doesn't want to get cooked alive. Conscripts continue to rush forward, continue to try and toss Molotovs, but they actually end up canceling it as the Grens push forward. Conscripts behind them going to Ura forward. Molotov does get tossed. The Gren squad does get cooked alive, but only suffers a little bit of damage. Doesn't even lose a single member. And the Conscripts do get forced to retreat. Rifle grenade does fly, hitting the Maxim machine gun. Conscripts retreat from the north, and the Maxim machine gun is forced to retreat as well. So Fortune is unable to break on the right-hand side and only manages to, well, kind of capture the midpoint that belongs to him, I suppose. Back at base, though, we do see that Fortune, well, we don't see because I'm looking at it, but there we go. We do see that a tier 3 is going down for Fortune. So I can only assume that's going to be T70, probably. I mean, Su-76 is also not a terrible choice. Artillery barrage, pretty good against things like the MGs, which are, you know, static. And of course, gives you defense against any light vehicles and even medium tanks that come up later. We do see the 222 going to be coming down for Princess of Swords. So, yeah, I mean, an SU wouldn't be too bad. Su-76 does have the chance of getting killed by the 222 if it gets circle strafed and unsupported. But, you know, at this caliber, you know, Fortune and such, I wouldn't expect that to happen, at least not that frequently. So I don't think we're going to see that. Maxim machine gun over on the right-hand side, getting inside that big 2-story house. They're going to be fighting against the Grens, house to house, but the Grens will lose that engagement to the machine gun. Left-hand side, Conscripts going for the strategic point, going to be forcing the retreat of a Pio squad. Second Pio squad behind it. Going to have the support of the 222, and with that, it is going to be difficult for the Conscripts to win the engagement. However, they may be able to stay in the point long enough to decap it, and it looks like that is exactly what they're going to do. They do decap down to 3 men, down to 2. Forced to retreat, the 222 may be able to pick up the kill here on the retreating squad. Wow. Come on, Tong. And we'll see. There's nothing in the way to provide any additional support, but it looks like the 222 is not going to go too aggressively. Turns itself on a dime like we all know that those 222s were able to do, and makes its way out of there. Maxim machine gun inside the house is going to get harassed here by the 222. The 222 going to be taking some damage to the fire of, well, the small arms fire of the MG crew. But it is going to do a decent amount of damage to the members inside, as those autocannon shots are pretty good at getting some hits in there. Oh, wow, that sucked. AT gun taking a shot at the 222, missing completely, even though it seemed like the shot went through the 222. But the 222 is quite fine. Could have potentially picked up a kill there, although I'm not sure if with the amount of health it has left, it would have been one shot. Could have maybe left at a death's edge. But, well, we'll never know since the shot never actually landed. Far on the left-hand side, Combat Engineer Squad going for the munitions. Gonna decap it, but it has itself in a very, very bad spot here. Caught between its retreat path by the Grens and the MG42. Doesn't really have anywhere to go. It can, like, round the hedge and then hit retreat, which will retreat it in this path. But it's tough location. Center, we see Grens with G43 since we have the Doctrine selection for both players. T70 is the one that ends up coming out for Fortune. T70 not a bad decision, of course, because, well, the 222, again, it can do a lot of damage to the T70, but the T70 should normally win on a one-on-one engagement. Incendiary rounds flying, trying to see if they can do any damage to the to the T70, but the T70 just doesn't really care too much about that. Going to be able to wreck the MG42. However, the 222 does get itself right behind the T70, and that will spell its doom. Hitting its repair. Decent decision, but not going to be enough. Main gun does get destroyed on the T70. T70 taking barrage from the 222. Out of control it goes. AT gun taking a good shot at the 222. Artillery barrage flies, hits the MG as it gets recovered, but the T70 does go down, and yeah. That was the issue. The 222 managed to get a lot of shots there in the rear. Almost gets itself killed there to the AT gun, but Princess of Sword coming up ahead, managing to keep himself in the game. I mean, keep his 222 in the game, is what I'm trying to say. Conscripts popping into this house, going to be fighting the MG at long range, but the MG will again also win. Fortune does go for his Doctrine. That is the Terror Tactics, of all things, getting himself that Shock Troop Squad. Similar to the Shock Rifle Frontline Tactics, it has the KV-8, but this one instead gives you Precision Bombing Strike, the Howitzer, and the Pure Propaganda. So it's all those mishmash commanders that were very prominent with the Brits and the Ver. We don't see a lot of commander choices now for the new factions, but I kind of think that's actually a better thing, because a lot of commanders here was just redundant and repeating pretty much the same thing as other commanders with one or two variations. So, yeah. Anyways, conscripts over on the right-hand side going to be going for the victory point. G43s on the Gren's going to be doing a lot of damage to them and winning the engagement. However, Maxim machine gun behind it, providing some support on the Gren's. Gren's getting suppressed and forced to retreat. 222 moving in that direction, feeling pretty badass now that it killed a T70. Veteran T2 has been acquired. At Veteran T2, it does get the ability to have more accuracy and then more sight range. So that's nice for the 222. And the conscripts over here in the center is just helping out capturing. Far left-hand side, we see the Shock Troop Squad forcing the Grents to retreat. Down to 2 men, very low in health, but they make it out of there. Second Grent Squad nearby, going to be chasing or engaging the Shock Troops, it looks like, but seems risky. AT... no. I don't know what killed it. I'm assuming the Maxim, although the AT gun is back here. Does have a vehicle destroyed, so I'm assuming it was that. This is a 1v1, so I guess I should probably take a look into that and put it. So you probably saw the moment of death. Let's just put a note here for myself. So there we go. We should be able to see, or I should stop saying it because, yeah, you already saw how it died and when it died. Anyways, Maxim machine gun on the right-hand side, getting pushed away by the Grens. Gren's going to be going for the fuel up in the center. Conscripts pushing forward, going to get on top of the MG42, but with 2 MG42s looking at them, they quickly get themselves pinned and riddled down to 5, well, down to very low amounts of health. 5 men still remaining. Going to be making it out of there. Back at base, though, we do have medics for Mr. Fortune, so his conscripts should be able to heal up fully, and no manpower will be lost. Only one member needs to be reinforced, so it's pretty cheap. The combat engineer squad on the right-hand side that we saw before did get murdered. It died. It didn't make it out of there, but I don't think that's too important enough to see. It's a combat engineer squad, and we know it died. Second squad in the same position as where their brethren died, getting assaulted by the G43s. They get forced to retreat, but this time they do make it out. We do have a demo charge laid down right next to the truck there for the heavy cover. Very nice and sneaky of fortune there. We'll see if it works out. And the truck troops on the left-hand side being left to their own devices, engaging Grens whenever they want, and, well, pretty much winning all the engagements, essentially, and controlling the victory points. Victory points are 468 to 391 in the favor of fortune. And G43s opening up in all directions on these conscripts, forcing them to retreat, as we have a total of 4 Grents on the field, 2 of them equipped with G43s, both of them shooting at that one squad. So conscripts using the cover of the wreck of their T-70. Able to push the Grents back. This Grent squad is forced to retreat. Maxim machine gun inside the house is taking some shots at range as this Grent squad gets suppressed. Right-hand side, the Grents over here with the G43s managing to retreat as a Molotov does get tossed in their face. That is going to be nice for Princes of Sword, as, you know, it's a little bit of wasted munitions. However, you know, it does give Fortune the ability to control and cap the map, which is obviously a little bit more important. Shock troops pushing all the way to the strategic point up in the north. That's not going to do too much, even though it technically wouldn't do really too much, considering it's only 2 strategic points. But this one in the south is still connected to the right-hand side point, which goes in turn to connect the point on the left. So even though Fortune took this point, it's not technically cutting off anything. So, you know, valiant attempt, but, you know, it doesn't actually work. Maxim machine gun getting some shots off at range, getting those Grents suppressed as they push over to the right-hand side. Conscript trying to hold up. This Pio squad may go down here to the volleys. Yes, it goes down as it put itself a little bit too far out there. And then we have the Pios behind them getting themselves pinned down. MG42 does get brought up into the engagement. Conscripts quickly retreat. MG42 attempting to suppress, manages to get the suppression right at the last second on the approaching conscripts, but it wouldn't have mattered too much as the MG42 inside the house manages to also get an angle on the conscripts and gets them pinned down. A little bit behind, we do have a pack-on for Princess of Sword. He's getting his second pack-on on the field, as we have nothing much coming out for Fortune. Nothing else. Sorry, nothing else from Tier 3. And no additional tech. Does get himself a combat engineer squad to continue to spend, but he does have a lot of manpower. Not wanting to spend it. I'm assuming, though, that that is going to be utilized in the KV-8. But, I mean, even then, the KV-8 is only 390 manpower, so it doesn't really need to be hoarding as much. I mean, at the very least, could just simply spend resources into building caches if you don't have anything to spend your resources on. You know, this point over here, this point over here, this point right here outside the base, the one on the right-hand side. You know, get those points secured, make it a little bit more difficult to cap, and as well give you extra resources. Could be even spent in just munitions and allow your conscripts to simply throw Molotovs free-nilly, I suppose. Getting more shock troops also helps. They, you know, they cost a little bit of what's it called? Manpower. Yeah, what the hell am I doing? But he decides instead that, you know, I'm just going to spend the manpower in the howitzer, which is also in a great shape. Not a great shape, a great option. Spend quite a bit. But again, I mean, he's already up to 500, so there should be something else that he can do, right? So anyways, Maxim over on the right-hand side, trying to stop the approaching infantry, manages to get the suppression on the MG and a suppression on the Pio squad, but the Pio squad manages to hide itself on the other side of the hedge, throwing flamethrower bursts on the conscripts in cover. However, the conscripts now essentially have a turkey shoot here in front of the Pios, although they didn't really seem to take that much damage, even though they were just sitting there on the floor. I guess being on the floor gave them a little bit of more of a harder chance to hit, I suppose, even though that's only if you're at range. But, you know, if somebody's in front of you and you hit the floor, he can kind of just shoot you in the floor. So. Anyways, Mortar also on the field for Princess of Sword. It looks like Princess of Sword is going to be deciding to as well go for the techless route, not wanting to tech anything else. He's just going to be saving his resources to get the Tiger. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense there. He's not spending any of his fuel. He's just spending his manpower as much as he can. He does need to have 19 population cap available, which seems to be, yeah, he has enough, so that's fine. But yeah, like, he's at least spending that manpower, whereas Fortune is not. I mean, he does need 14, so it's fine, but he needs more. Anyways, artillery howitzer manages to throw a barrage there, collapsing the two-story house, killing the MG42 crew inside, however, not before it managed to exit the building, and the Grand Squad goes in and recovers the weapon. So, good for Fortune, but Prince of Sword manages to at least keep his weapon. Molotov does fly, hitting that MG42 inside the other house, the yellow house, forcing the retreat. Combat engineers and conscripts pushing forward. Grens with the G43 is not going to be allowing them to push a lot further forward, and MG and Grens on the left-hand side do force the shock troops to retreat, finally, from the left-hand side, and allow Princes of Sword to go into recover territory. However, on the right-hand side, the flank has broken, and Fortune is currently capturing everything. KV-8 finally getting called in. I mean, he actually has almost enough fuel to get a second one, so that may have been his plan. I mean, I suppose that kind of works, you know, in the long run. Does need to wait for the cooldown, you know, still about a minute, 42 seconds there. And needs a little bit more fuel, which will be enough once the recharge goes through. And from what I recall, the KV-8 has not been set to be limited to only one. So we'll see. It is, of course, a dangerous gamble, considering that if you don't close the game relatively quickly, a Tiger is going to pop in your ass, so we'll see. Anyways, KV-8 over here on the left-hand side quickly incinerates a squad here. Pack gun managing to get some good hits there on the KV-8. The KV-8 now down to less than half health. Pilot squad forced to retreat. Conscript forced to retreat, as well as the Grens pop out next to them and get some good G43 shots on them. But with now... What did he... Oh, okay. I was like, what? Why was that? Okay, so finally Fortune decides, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and tech. Which... Okay, I suppose that's a little bit more reasonable, like I said. If he goes for a second KV-8, yeah, he could potentially end the game quickly. But if he doesn't, like I said, he has to deal with the Tiger. And, I mean, he'd have to deal with it with only 80 guns because the KV-8s can't do shit against the Tiger. Combat engineers on the right-hand side are going to be repairing that KV-8 for a little while, as it does have a lot of health. So it takes a little bit of time to do that. Point on the far north did not get capped, while the point on the far edge of the map did actually get capped there for Fortune. I suppose it's not currently providing anything. And we see a third pack gun coming into play for Princes of Sword. We hear the artillery gun taking some shots at, the base? Yep. Taking some shots into the base, seeing if it can catch anything, but it's not actually going to catch anything. It usually only works if you force, like, a mass retreat, which can actually work very well with this Doctrine, considering that he has fear propaganda. And, so you force a retreat of multiple squads, throw the artillery, and potentially get yourselves some nice hits and squad wipes. And we do see there the propaganda artillery getting popped. One squad retreating, the other one pinned down. Second squad pinned down. Nobody really moving, though, so we'll see. Pack guns do push forward by themselves. Well, that's about it. Nothing really happens there with that. KV-8 moving over on the right-hand side, trying to get some hits on the retreating infantry. Managing to not do so. Keep an eye on that, see how many kills it gets. The tier 4 has gone down for Fortune. We'll see what he ends up building from that. Princes of Sword, like we said, he's not teching and he's not going to tech. He's just waiting around. He does have 10 command points, command points so far. Needs 13 for that Tiger, so that's the problem. It takes a while, and yeah, I mean, look at his things. It gives the Tiger turret rotation and increased sight. Yeah, so 5%, 5%, 5%. So buffs on all the Tigers. So that seems to be Princes of Swords' strategy. Win with a Tiger, which, you know, to be fair, kind of happens a lot. Artillery gun, howitzer getting some shots off into the distance, maybe trying to hit the pack guns as they backed off, but They all move out of the way, managing to keep themselves intact. Pack guns getting a good volley there on the KVA. The KVA now going to be backing off, taking some additional shots as it retreats from the pack guns. The combat engineers are nearby and can quickly repair it. Conscripts pushing forward, getting themselves torn apart by the Gurens, and the MG42 behind there for support. Victory points 437 to 291. Princes of Sword currently down, but Fortune is not wanting to let up and just simply sit there and wait. Maxim machine guns do still hold themselves up inside these houses, making sure they can cover this entire approach, and they're doing a decent job of that. Combat engineers repairing that KV-8. This other squad was forced to retreat back at base. The shock troops are now moving out, conscripts as well. And we'll see if Princess of Sword can hold on. Fortune, though, does decide to go for the second KV-8, so he ended up building that tier 4 for nothing. Could have gotten the KV-8 a lot earlier and only now started building his tier, so, you know. In that sense, yeah, he essentially wasted that, because usually you don't want to tech up and not build anything from your tier building. Like, obviously that doesn't apply directly to prerequisite tiers like tier 1 and tier 2. You know, you can just simply build them if you're wanting to get vehicles from the higher tiers, but if you're getting yourself tier 4, I mean, that's about it, so you kind of want to build something in tier 4. Even though, yes, this is going to work, or can probably work for Fortune with those two KV-8s. Speaking of KV-8, it catches a Grand Squad over on the right-hand side, forcing it to retreat. It did manage to decap the victory point, but the combat engineers are there and they'll recover it quickly. But yeah, my point simply is that, you know, for efficiency purposes and such, you know, yeah, Fortune could have just simply gotten himself the second KV-8, and now at this point started teching up and have the building, and it would have worked out just as well. But again, I mean, it's easy to say that from this point of view because you know that nothing is coming and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, if you're going to be building a tech unit, a higher tier tech building, you at least want to build one thing out of it after that. And then you can maybe tech switch and do something else, because otherwise it was just wasted resources, is my point. So you don't want to leave a building too long unused after building it when it's a higher tech building. Right? And likewise, I mean, for example, it does apply to the low tech buildings in the early game. Like, you don't want to open up with tier 1 and then just build conscripts and not anything from your tier 1 and then tech up later, because it would have been the same thing to just simply get your unit, your conscripts or whatever first, and then tech up to using tier 1 or tier 2 once you were going to tech up to a higher building. It's just, you know, about efficiency. But anyways, we see the KV-8 going for a massive strike here on the pack guns. Pack guns taking a lot of fire damage. All three clumped up, all three getting cleared out. Unfortunately, have just won himself the game at this stage. However, we do see Princess of Sword going for his trump card, getting himself that Tiger on the field. The Tiger now has to contend with the KV-8s, and, well, only one AT gun, so the Tiger is not in bad shape. However, there are 3 AT guns or pack guns right here on the left-hand side. Fortunately, you should say good luck, have fun next time. I guess nobody said that or something. I don't know. Normally common courtesy, but, you know, it's not necessarily a thing. But anyways, the other KV-8, oh, apparently I missed it, was back at base, getting the, roasting the other troops. I'll actually take a look at that so we can see the carnage. KV-8 does end up going down, but we can now see that Princess of Sword has essentially lost everything. Has a Grand Squad currently retreating from the field, going back to base, and is building a Pile Squad. Does have his Tiger, his quickly sighted Tiger, but we now have the pack guns getting retaken here by the conscripts of Fortune, turning themselves around to face the mighty Tiger. They may be able to kill it. An AT gun does go off. AT grenade, I mean, does go off there by the conscripts, getting the damage on the engine. But before anything comes to a close, Princess of Sword decides, you know what? Yeah, I'm back to the game's over, and throws in the towel. So yeah, I mean, KV-8s are powerful, and that is why they're getting addressed in the upcoming patch. There is, of course, at this stage, the mod, you know, testing mod to check out the changes that are planned, so you can, you know, jump in there and see if you have any input and if you agree with the extreme, well, not extreme, but the extent of the changes. But yeah, basically they're bringing the flamethrowers of pretty much everything in line, but specifically they're addressing the KV-8, the Crocodile, and the Universal Carrier. And the Croc is actually, I mean, not the Croc, the KV-8 is actually taking a big hit there on the damage. So we'll see how well it performs after that. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the game. If you have any positive or negative remarks, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. If you have any replays you want to send me, go ahead and send them to the email that I will put in the description. But otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.